In this series of tutorials, we're going to draw slightly more complex poses. But before we get to the actual poses, let's talk about how to use your armature and your simplified geometric volumes to convey that complexity. Let's talk about the head first. If we're looking at the head straight on, and the head is looking straight at you, we're going to draw a center line that looks like this. And we use the center line to indicate the rotation of the head. So right now the head is looking this way. If we have a head that's rotated in 3/4 view, our center line is going to run here. And then profile view, it'll run along the contour of the oval. Now, to convey complexity, we need to add one additional feature to our oval, which is something called eye level. Eye level is a horizontal line that runs through the middle of the oval. Now, if the head is tilted forward, we can use our eye level to indicate that tilt by curving it either down, so it looks like the head is tilted downward, or up, so it looks like the head is tilted back. So if we're looking at the head, let's say from some kind of side angle, and the head is leaning forward, we can use the center line to tilt our head forward this way, let's say, like this. Now we can use our center line to indicate the fact that the head is, let's say, turned like this. And we can also use our eye level to indicate whether we're looking at the head from above or below. So in this case, maybe we'll indicate something that looks like this to show that our head is rotated sideways and that we're looking at it from below, like this. So let's draw a couple of ovals. Let's see what this looks like. So let's say we're drawing a head that is tilted the other direction. Going this way. Rotated approximately 3/4 view. And looking down. Let's draw another one. Looking up this way and seen a little bit from underneath, like this. Okay, so I'm trying to draw dark so you guys can actually see this, but in reality this kind of indication needs to be done very, very lightly because you don't want it to interfere with the actual drawing that you put on top. What else? Well, let's talk about the ribcage. Ribcage is actually very, very similar. Here's a ribcage seen from the front. And then we're going to find the halfway point on the ribcage that looks like this. Now we can use these two lines to indicate the rotation and tilt of my ribcage. So let's say now we have a ribcage that is tilted back. Here's our center line going this way. And then we're looking at the ribcage slightly from below. So if I was going to place anatomical features on this, here would be the pit of the neck. Below the halfway point would be the thoracic arch, the opening of the rib cage. We're going to have the same thing here. Our pit of the neck is going to be here, and now our thoracic arch is going to run this way. Now let's say the rib cage is tilted forward ever so slightly, but straight on. Here's our center line. Here's our new halfway point, going this way. One additional feature that we need to record is the fact that when we're looking at the ribcage from below, when the ribcage is tilted forward, we're going to see more opening here, which means that the pit of the neck is going to drop down significantly. And the more the ribcage is tilted forward, the more compressed it becomes, the rounder it becomes. So when we have significant tilt forward, the shape goes from egg-shaped to slightly circular. Dropping down, then we're going to see much more of the opening here. Here's the pit of the neck, here's our thoracic arch, and then we can use this orientation to place our pectoralis major muscles on top. Now, almost bird's eye view, the ribcage is going to compress a lot. So this might be a situation where the ribcage is visible only from the top angle. Here's our center line. Our halfway point might run somewhere here. Here's the pit of the neck. But we're going to avoid poses like this for now until we get a little bit more advanced. What else? Well, the hips. Look, all three shapes have the same principle. You're going to find both the center line and the halfway point. So it just so happens that in the head, the center line is called eye level. So here's the middle of the hips. Here's my halfway point. That's the origin of the femur, the trochanter. Let's say we have hips that are rotated a little bit sideways, this way, and seen a little bit from below, this way. Going this way, and then our legs coming out this way. This is actually just about the most difficult aspect in the armature. Looking at something really complex, seeing the abstract simple egg shapes and spherical shapes underneath, and trying to determine exactly what the tilt, rotation, angle of them are. This can be really, really complicated, and quite often not exactly right. Little by little, over time, you get better at it. Some things are measurable. So for instance, if I want to figure out what the tilt of my oval is, I can use the center line. I can hold my pencil up against the center line, and whatever the center line is doing, I know that my oval is parallel to the center line. Right? Here I can look for the sternum. Whatever the sternum is doing, our oval is parallel. Right? For the hips, in order to get the angle this way, I can look at the angle from here to here, from the trochanter to trochanter. It's not always visible. And by the way, all these poses are seen from the front. Sometimes you're looking at things directly from the side where you can't see the sternum, but you can see the spine. So for instance, on a ribcage, if I'm looking at it from the back, instead of looking for the sternum to determine the tilt, I'm going to look for the furrow of the spinal column. So here are our collarbones. And essentially, whatever angle the furrow is taking, that's going to be our center line. So now we have a rib cage. Let's say that is rotated this way and seen slightly from below. I'm still going to find the halfway point here. Why? Because in this case, this line represents not the opening of the thoracic arch, but the ends of the scapula, which is going to be really, really important. More on this later. We're going to keep building little by little. This armature building is somewhat dry. So we're going to cover it in bits and pieces as the poses become increasingly complex. But for right now, it really, really helps to draw these simple shapes and just think about the general orientation. So here is an oval. Let's see if I can do one without repeating myself. Well, some kind of extreme angle, right? Looking up and from below. Right? Doing these kinds of ovals, first of all, helps improve your line quality, which is really, really important. And then, once you get the hang of this, it's going to help with your armature.